In our previous video, we learned and gained knowledge about Azure Virtual Network. And I'm sure most of you have now complete and at least the better understanding that why we actually created that virtual network and why we need to use that. Just to give you a brief idea once again so that you can remember and understand this video pretty well. The first thing first, to create that virtual network inside Microsoft Azure gives us an ability to actually communicate within Microsoft Azure Network, or in fact, if we really want to access our server from the internet, that capability also we can get after configure the virtual network. But definitely it's not just like you create a virtual network and everything is just ready for you. No. If you really want to achieve what the organization is looking for from your end, then you need to understand the next concept, that is private network and public network. It is true that in our previous video, we also go and understand that how you can, makes a better understanding on these two topics. But in this video, we will also try to learn how we can implement and where we can find more settings in Microsoft Azure so that you will have the more confidence how you can start manage and access those virtual network in terms of public and private networks. Along with that, after we obviously understand that public and intranet or private access, then we will try to talk about in this video Azure Network Security Groups. Now this is very important and wonderful topic because I'm in security and I love that it is very important, and Microsoft actually provide this option with a very easy way so that you can start protecting your workloads. Hello guys, my name is Harshanga, and in this video we will got to learn two different things. One, exactly how you can start configuring public access and private access. And the second thing, how you can start protecting your workloads, or you can say your virtual machines inside Microsoft Azure. Now, if you really think about that, why you need to know about all the things, let me give you a brief idea from this picture I have created for you. Now, as you can see, here I have created a Azure Virtual Network, right? You can see that, and even I give the name Virtual Network or VNet 1, which is pretty simple, pretty straight. Now, the next important thing that you need to know is here I have created 4 different virtual machines inside that virtual network. It's not just you created inside virtual network, it's just like you actually associate this virtual network to all of these different machines. Now, what are the advantage if you just associate this virtual network? Because guys, once you associate a virtual network, now you have 2 different options that allows you to access your machines. One, obviously, you want to communicate within these all virtual machines you have created inside Microsoft Azure. That's our primary goal. And how you can achieve that? With the help of a private address, or we can call it in other sense private IP address or private network. Both are absolutely same. Now, it is very important, pretty straightforward. And how we can achieve? We can simply use the same virtual network, and here I give the IP address as well as the subnet mask. And I think in the previous video I go through a couple of basic understanding that how you can actually start assigning your IP address. And here as an example, in the subnet mask you can see that I have 255.255.255.0, which means where you can find 0, it means I can change those values and it's absolutely fine. It means again that if I keep changing these values, I'm keep adding more computers within the same network so that they are efficiently able to communicate with each other. Now here in this particular picture, you can see that I have another IP address, but this time my network is different. And how you can define and identify your network is from 255.255.255.0. So leave 0 and consider only 255.255.255 in this example. Now, how you can relate this one? Because guys, always remember, wherever you can find 255, 255, 255, it means you need to consider those value, and you don't need to care about the last value, because last value belongs to host, and host means you are able to add more computers. Similarly, as you can see, this is my different network, because here I have 192.168.1. And if I go to another virtual machine, but I'm using the same virtual network, here the subnet is 192.168.2, which by default not able to communicate with each other. It's a by default. But yes, if I want, I can create a very valid and successful communication in between these virtual machines. Similarly, guys, as you can see, I'm using a different subnet, and that's how originally the organization actually configure their virtual machines. Now, what is the purpose here? Why we need to use a different subnet in the real protection or in the real world is because, guys, the company have multiple tiers. In tiers in the sense, let me give you one brief idea. They may have a front-end server, they have a back-end server, or maybe they also have a kind of a data storage server, which allows us to differentiate all these different virtual machines act differently. Don't worry, I have one example today, I will explain you, but right now that is the reason I give a different network to all these different machines. When you want to communicate in between these virtual machines, you are able to do that. Yeah, we need to follow a different process, that's absolutely fine, but within the virtual network or within the Microsoft Azure, it's all good, no issue at all. And how I am able to do that? Because of my private addressing. And because of this, all of these, front-end server, back-end server, data storage, all are absolutely safe and secure, because nobody else in the world or from the internet are able to access these virtual machines by default. And that's a very good sign. But now, the company required that you definitely configure your web servers with the internet, because that's why you created your web servers. Now, I don't know how many of you are very well aware about the web server, but let me give you a very brief information here. The web server is responsible to just kind of build a website and publish those websites to the world. And if you really want to achieve that thing within the Microsoft Azure, you need to configure a public access to your virtual network, or in fact your virtual machines. If you have not configured a public access, or in other sense a public IP address to these virtual machines, they are not going the information is not going outside to that virtual network. So that's exactly, you need to understand and able to know why you need to configure. Probably you're very well aware now, because you want to give access to everyone in the world so that they are able to review your website, and if they like it, you can get more views to your website. In other sense, maybe you have some data that you want to share with many people. So of course, with the security parameters, you may want to give access to the public for some reason, because these are the probabilities, or these are the possibilities that you want to use a public address. But I think you get my point. Private addresses or private networks are within Microsoft inside Azure Network. That's it. When we talk about the public access, that means you want to give a dedicated virtual network, or maybe that's not a right word, but again, just to give you better awareness, you need to assign a public IP address to a dedicated machine, so that that machine, single machine, is able to communicate to the internet. Here as an example, this is my web server, and this web server wants to communicate over the internet. And obviously why? Because I have a website running on this server like harsharena.com. So what you need to do, simply assign a public access and you're good to go. So this is what the first thing we are going to learn today. including the implementation and where you can find this option when you are actually configuring your virtual machine. Second thing is all about the security. Now, obviously, when you allow a web server to communicate over the internet, you're always worried about one thing, that hey Harsh, okay, you are allowing my web server to communicate with everyone. What if someone has the complete access of my server? Yes, these are the possibilities, and definitely you don't want to do that. So guys, we have a kind of a very small level of a firewall. It's not a firewall, but you know, when I check lots of documentation and some blogs, lots of people mention about this network security group as a firewall. But actually guys, it's not a firewall. It's a simple access control list, which means, because this particular feature usually you can find in the real world firewalls or the hardware based firewall. Now the advantage of using access based control list is like you are dedicatedly selecting an IP address or maybe a protocol. What are the protocol are responsible for to allow communication of certain services. For example, if you want to access your website, you always use HTTP or HTTPS. For HTTP, the port number is 80, and for HTTPS, port number is 443 as an example. So if you want to allow and give access to these ports, you need to make sure you don't want to give access to, I mean, anyone. So if you do that, you have to be very much careful, because that guy possibly can, you know, use some kind of hacking attacks or maybe some kind of possible malware attacks which can infect your web server. But again, we will talk about that more in the network security group. But it's just not about the protecting from this hacking thing, but indeed protecting from unauthorized access from a certain IP address or a group. So we'll talk about that more, and right now I think you will have a complete basic understanding about the topics which we are going to learn today. So guys, let's move forward and try to get more information on each of the topics. All right, so now we are going to learn a little bit more in terms of practical as well as a kind of example that can help you to even more aware that how you can use your private and public networks when you are actually start implementing solutions in Microsoft Azure. So guys, just like I already explained and make you aware about the topic, that private access is all about that how you can start configuring solution in terms of give the network access within your all the virtual machines or sort of any other resources inside your Microsoft Azure network. That's it. So when you talk about a private access, it means you are giving a kind of connectivity access to all of the resources within your Microsoft Azure network. So it means by default, your virtual machines are not able to connect to the internet. That's it. So all of the virtual machines which is running inside the same virtual network, or in fact in different virtual networks, but in Microsoft Azure, you can allow them to communicate with each other. Yeah, there are certain ways. We will not talk about those possibilities that how you can connect in between virtual networks in this video, but yes, to make you better understand where you can find this private access option while configuring a virtual machine and of course a virtual network, I will show you both of these options. Apart from that, it can help you to simplify your network architecture and of course secure connection between endpoints within Azure. That's exactly the true statement here, because you are not leaving Microsoft Azure network. You are inside the Microsoft Azure network. So we are not so worried, because obviously if you talk about attackers, hackers, or any kind of a user who really want to attract your virtual machines to in fact something bad, so that it can help, it cannot help, that's a wrong word. It may destroy your application, your server, or sort of these kind of possibilities might be there. So you are not allowing all sort of these kind of access because you are currently working in a private zone. You are not allowing anyone to let inside inside your Azure network, and also you don't even allowing anyone from your inside Azure network to access anything to the outside world. And that's the beauty of using this private access or network. Now in this picture, as an example, I think we have already discussed about front-end server. The front-end server is considered as a web server, which is actually having a kind of a website, and you want that that website should be accessible by everyone in the world. But we will talk about that public access later. But right now, this is the scenario here. And the second thing is the backend server. The backend server is definitely connected through a private network or maybe a different subnet. For example, 1.1 or 192.168.1.1, and here is 192.168 maybe 2.2 as an example, and this is my backend server 2 data storage, and this is my 192.168 3.3. This is the IP address here in the data storage. So the purpose of this scenario making here as an example is a very a kind of a famous or kind of a very valuable kind of deployment in any of the organization. Whenever they do that, they actually create scenarios in this way all the time. Now you need to be very well aware about this, that they are able to communicate with each other although they are in a different subnet. Just like I said, we have many ways that we are able to make them communicate with each other. That is all about private access. I think you understand this very well now, I'm sure. If you don't, please post a comment in the YouTube video section and I will certainly reply you back. Now let's move forward to the next step. Is all about the public access. So guys, just like I explained already, that public access is something that you want to give the complete access over the people who is sitting over the internet, and you want them to access your web server or maybe a certain server where you have some sort of data that you want all of the people should access or should have access. So that's how you need to think about public access, because just like I said, by default, none of your virtual machines are able to, or none of your resources are able to communicate with outer world. So if you want them to give or make them, allowing them to access resources over the internet, then you need to assign an IP address with the public access, or we call it public network access. So guys, that's the purpose of this particular public access. And right here in the real world scenario, whenever we have a web server, we actually need to make sure that we must have a public IP address, or we call it PIP. The public IP address must be configured on one of the interface on this particular virtual machine, because if you don't have a public IP address, then you are absolutely not allowed to communicate over the internet. So that's how I want to give you just a brief idea that of course, if you want everybody wants to access inside this virtual machine, then yes, you need to make sure the public access should be allowed. Now in this particular picture, you can see that I just said outbound public access and inbound public access. So there are two different things. Right now, this front-end server is responsible to access certain data from the internet. So I just want to make sure that my virtual machine are able to access internet. Only that scenario I'm currently thinking of from this web server. So yes, what I need to do, I need to configure a outbound public access through which I can be allowed. But in case if I make a scenario where I don't want that any user are able to access my web server right now, then I can simply assign inbound public access as a deny request. Don't worry, we will do that in the next step, but I just want to give you some glimpse that, okay, there are two kind of possible scenarios in public access, or in fact in private as well: inbound and outbound. Outbound means the request is going from inside Azure network to outside world, and inbound means the request is coming from internet to inside Azure network. So we will talk about that later, but just now, once again, remember the public access is all about when you want to give access over the internet or to the internet, and private, it's all about inside Azure network. I think it makes some sense to you. And now let's move forward and learn how you can configure both of these options and where you can find during the time of deployment of an Azure virtual machine, so that it will be so much helpful for you to deploy your virtual machine with the right network access. I have happy face again. Why so? Because we are on Azure Portal and we really want to learn something new today, right? So and also guys, I always encourage, not just a request, that please, after learn anything in Microsoft Azure, at least try once in Azure Portal if you really want to learn and gain all the knowledge, especially in your job roles. Because see, maybe you can pass your examination, but when you actually start dealing with the real queries, or you can say the real world questions, or the architecture, or the implementation, deployment, planning, designing, so you have to be very much aware where are these all options there. If you just watch my video and you think you are very much understand everything, I don't know if it is right or wrong, but according to me, you better do these things by your hands. If you do these hands-on practices, you will be more confident that, okay, I have to go to this place to find out this solution. If I go to that place, the option is right there for me, or something like that. I mean, I think you get the whole point here. But again, I'm really happy. And guys, before to even move forward, I like to tell you that today I received a call from Rohit. He's from Delhi. Rohit, I really like to talk to you, and I really appreciate that you find time and call me and discuss about what you feel about the YouTube videos. You made my day, and I always keep thinking that such people should be in touch with me, and finally I have Rohit. Rohit, thank you, and we all really appreciate and love you because you have a smiling face, and that's what I like about you. Positive, energetic, and of course, learner, a passionate learner. Anyway, let's come back and start looking into Azure Portal, guys. So in the Azure Portal, the first thing first, we need to know that when we configure a new Azure virtual machine, or in fact, any of the resource where you can find the option to configure private and public access. So let me start with the first let's start creating a new machine, and I can first show you where you can find all the details. So the next time when you create a new virtual machine, you must be aware the option is right there, and how you can use that option, I can also quickly go through them, although not in very much in detail, because AZ-900 does not cover each and everything about virtual network and private and public access, because there are lots of settings inside the network interface, virtual network. But don't worry, we will go step by step so that you all have a confidence in Microsoft Azure to implement the solutions. So if I like to create a new virtual machine, so of course I click create a new virtual machine. It's pretty simple and straight. And as an example, if I click on my existing resource group and I give the name practice HAVM, I think this would be the best name. All right, I'm going to create this virtual machine in the region, which is fine. And yeah, guys, this is something new Microsoft has been added. I like to call out this option. I don't know how many of you have seen or get details about it or not. I think you already heard about Uefi Boot, or in other sense called Secure Boot. And of course, there's another topic called TPM, Trusted Platform Module. Anyway, I don't want you to be confused here, but just want to give you the information that with this option, it gives you the advanced security features to protect your machine while booting from a very beginning. Yeah, but you just need to remember that you must have generation 2 VM only to support with this. If you don't have a generation 2, like I'm using an image for generation 1, this won't help me here. So remember that whenever you like to create a virtual machine or something like that, please make sure you choose Gen 2 so that this security type, or a kind of the policy, or I can say the protection, will be applied to all of your virtual machine. It's a very good way, but remember, this is not in the finalized state. So please do not apply this on the real production machines, because if you do that, it might break those machines. But yes, you can start trying to use these options so that you can get more details about it. Another thing, if you have already existing running machine Gen 2, you cannot enable this feature on them. If you want to do that, you have to delete that VM and do it again. And I'm sure you don't want to do that with your production environment. Anyway, this is just want to give you the information because Microsoft has recently updated this feature. Apart from that, of course, I'm good and happy with all of the thing. Let me give my username and the password so that we'll be ready to move forward with the next step. And the next step is where we can find network configuration option. So guys, this is our next topic today. So I will explain that, but right now I'm just going to choose none. That's absolutely fine with me, and choose, I like to confirm with the licensing server. So now let's go to the important point called networking. So guys, as soon as you click on networking, you can see there are a couple of options here. You need to focus on 3 important options. Number 1, virtual network, because this virtual network has been already created during the time of when I created my earlier machines, like HA backend server, like HA front-end server, and HA storage server. So this VNet has been already created. Another thing, if you really want to create a virtual machine in a different location, I must say, for example, not in East US 2, you like to choose, let's say, East US as an example. If I now go back to networking, you can see that that particular VNet is not available, because remember always, virtual network, you can choose from the dedicated location that you choose. So that's why we always recommend that whenever you like to configure, you have to plan first, because if you just keep creating a new virtual machine in the dedicated virtual network, it might not help you. So anyway, my suggestion is please make sure which location you like to choose, because I have created all of my virtual machine in East US 2. So this configuration is absolutely fine. Now you have a subnet options. So by default, I have a subnet called 10.0.0.0. That's an address space, and /24, which is CIDR values, which means 255.255.255.0. That's a default one. Anyway, that's absolutely fine, but if you like to configure more subnets, you can also click here and configure more subnets. Although I will quickly show you where you can find this information very soon. Now the next thing is very, very important. Just like I said, whenever you create a public IP address, so guys, it is not a good idea that you create your public IP address immediately during the creation of your virtual machine, because just like I said, as per the production Microsoft best practices, you don't need to configure public IP address on that. Yes, the private IP address, which is right here, could be configured automatically. You don't need to worry. But here, guys, my suggestion is please choose none. Do not create a public IP address during the time of creation of your virtual machine. All right. So as soon as you're ready with all of these things, you don't need to worry about now network security group, because just like I said, it's our next topic. Right now it's fine. And public inbound and outbound, that's all okay. I don't want to touch that at the moment. So we are good here. And once you're good, just click on review and create and just hit create. Once your virtual machine is ready to create, you are good to go with the configuration and your virtual machine will be ready in no time. So this is something you must be aware during the time of deployment, because obviously guys, I'm sure that you don't want to do that. You don't want to make any mistake during the time of creation. However, let's go back and let me try to close this screen. Yeah, it is right here on the, I'm fine with the closing this screen, because here is all the virtual machine has been created, and you can see that the status here is running. And the good thing is all of my virtual machine has been created under the same location, East US 2. Now, what I want to show you is the public IP address, because guys, automatically whenever you create a new virtual machine and when you assign a virtual network, it automatically configured your private IP address, and I will show you where you can find that. But at the moment you can see that I have only one machine, which is front-end server, where I have not assigned public IP address, right? Or in fact, it's not a good practice that with the backend server and the storage servers I have already assigned, because I want to show you these public IP addresses could be random or could be dynamically assigned. So you don't need to be very much, in that place that, okay, Harsh, why it has been assigned in 40.70.60.112, or why it has been assigned to like 20.97.234.213. Because guys, whenever you configure a public IP address in any of the resource in Microsoft, it actually most likely to configure your dynamic IP address, public IP address. But again, if you have a dedicated public IP address already purchased by your firm, you can also add that as a part of a static IP address. But if you do that and it conflicts anywhere in the world, it will notify you and you are not being available over the public internet access. So just be aware about that when you configure a public IP address in Microsoft Azure. Now, what I want to show you, let's go to the backend server first. Obviously, this is one thing I like to show you. And as soon as you open that, check out here. I have a public IP address assigned, right? It been assigned and we can see that. And also, if I like to see the private IP address, so guys, the private IP address has been assigned right here for backend server. If I go to my storage server, you can check that in the storage server, the public IP address assigned, that's fine. And also I have a private IP address 10.0.0.4. It's absolutely fine for me. And the last one is front-end server. If I go to the front-end server, you can see that I don't have a public IP address configured here, but I do have a private IP address, right? So just like I said, and just like I explained that, okay, whenever a company, whenever your organization or your solution architect requested you to configure a public IP address to a machine which has not been assigned during the time of creation, how you can do that. So guys, to achieve that, go to that virtual machine or web server as an example. And of course here, you have to click on networking. The steps are very, very easy. And you know what? When I do this for the first time, I said, really? Is that easy? Because guys, in the on-premises environment, my experience was pretty different. Because each time if we like to assign an IP address, a public IP address dedicated, we always have to contact our internet service provider. And once the internet service provider, which usually take a couple of days to provide that IP address, and because of the formalities and everything, and once we have that, then we configured on a dedicated web server, and we are ready to allow through the firewalls. That's how it works in the old time. But in the new era, in the new world, I think the similar way you can also do in Google Cloud Platform as well as in Amazon Web Services. Pretty easy, straight. Because Microsoft has reserved a couple of dynamic public IP addresses, and it can be automatically assigned to your devices or your infrastructure wherever you need. Anyway, what I'm trying to explain here is you have this section, this one. Okay, here I have a network interface. I have the important thing is virtual network and of course subnet. So guys, I can see that right now I don't have a public IP address, but I do have a private IP address. So what I have to do to assign a public IP address, I need to go to that dedicated virtual machine or a web server and click on this virtual network. As soon as you click on virtual network, you can see that I have a couple of device which is called network interface card, or in other way NIC. Yeah, that's the right word, or in generally in India we call it LAN card, right? So these are the virtual LAN card assigned to these all different virtual machines, and I think you can easily recognize by their names: HA storage server, HA backend server, and HA front-end server. So right now we like to configure the public address on a front-end server. So click on this network interface card. So as soon as you do that now, guys, I have to click on IP configuration. So once I do that, what it does for me here, it automatically shows me, okay, I have a private IP address which has been assigned dynamically. It's absolutely fine, but I don't have a public IP address, right? So to do and to achieve the public IP addressing on this particular machine or interface, I have to click on this dedicated IP config section. And here, guys, you can see that I have public IP address, which is by default selected as a disassociate. Because if you remember, we do not assign public IP address during the time of creation of this virtual machine. So what I have to do only, just click on associate and choose public address. Click here, and of course can be associated with this network interface. That's fine. Or you can choose anyone cannot be associated. I definitely want is can be associated. And what other options do I have? Let me double check. Okay, can be with this network interface. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. So can I click on this one? No, choose empty. Okay, that's fine. Well, you must not be empty. I'm trying to choose that, my dear. Backend server is not good, and this is not good. Now what we should do? That's the very interesting thing. I don't have any other public IP address. Okay, so guys, what you have to do is click home back again, or you can simply go to here and type public IP address right here. So as soon as you type public IP address, it goes to a different service from Microsoft Azure. Click here, and as you can see, I have already two different public IP address already been available. So what I have to do, I have to click on create. And once I click create, so of course I like to assign IP version 4. I will choose the default one at the moment. Everything is same. So what the name of this public IP address? So front end PIP. I think this would be easy. And yeah, that's static. Okay, I don't mind to assign the static, but what exactly you want to access with this public address? Obviously, I like to access from the internet part, so it's all okay. Let me try with a global tier. No, that's fine. No, global tier is not good. Basic, I think basic is fine because it is gonna be assigned dynamically. I don't need to worry about any other thing. So resource group, obviously I can choose the resource group if I have. I can choose new here, so I think that's fine. HA would be easy. HA is okay. Location would be East US2. I want the same association. So click create. So what it does, guys, it actually creates a new public IP address which is dynamically assigned right now because it's not been associated with anyone. It is simply just create a public IP address. That's it. So just wait for this deployment. As soon as this deployment has been completed, we can see that a new dedicated public IP address been created, and obviously that is only for that front-end server. So let me just wait for this deployment to complete. Usually it won't take more than a minute or sometime it take. Wow, it's just completed. So Azure, you are great. Okay, let me try to refresh whether I have a new one, or maybe I have to refresh the complete page. See if I have any updates or here. Okay, no. Anyway, let me try to go back and go to here. Let's go to HA front-end server, go to networking, and here, let me check if I have anything good in this place. I go to IP configuration here. Let me choose associate, choose an IP address. Do I have any? No guys, it's currently taking time. Usually it won't take much time, but anyway, it's taking time right here, because once it has been it's been available, it will be associated. So I'll do one thing. I will wait for some more time, and once this public, oh yeah, it's currently been right now here. There are two options guys. One, you can click here, you can associate the IP address from this place, of course the configuration and everything. Otherwise, what you can do, you can simply go to this place where is our virtual machine. I think this would be the easiest one for you. So front-end server, networking again. Where are you? Okay, now we have front-end server, that's fine. IP address, now just go to IP config, associate. Now, wow, I don't have at the moment as well. Anyway guys, I'll wait for some time and I'll pause the video. As soon as I can see the public IP address right here, I'll come back and show you that it can show the information right under this place. Alright guys, so here you can see now I have the association, and when I choose this one, you just click save. Once the association will be visible, what you need to do, you just need to wait for some time, and this IP address is gonna be associated to this interface card, and here is the process, or you can say all the details you can find out under notification area. And as soon as this network interface has been configured for this interface, we can simply go to the virtual machine and see whether we are able to have any new information right on the page or not. The good thing about this practice is, or this problem that we face during the video is, we also go to the public IP addresses, and we actually created a new one. Also, you can also understand that from where you have to go and choose the right public IP address in case your organization is looking for you to associate or establish a connection to the internet. Now we simply need to wait for this configuration to be completed. Now simply looks good. It's been saved. Let me go back to the public machine now and see whether front-end server has any information or not. Can you see that now guys? The front-end server now has a public IP address visible here. So this is what you need to remember, that how you can start associating your IP addressing with the virtual machine, or in fact any of the resource, because guys, the steps are absolutely same. Simply go to networking and start assigning those public and private IP addressing based on your requirement. I think you find this practice helpful. Now let's go to the next topic called network security group and learn even more about it. Microsoft Azure Network Security Groups, or in short NSG. Now, what exactly this particular feature or service in Microsoft Azure does work? And you know what guys, in terms of security, you all must be very well and very much aware that what NSG is all about, and especially how you can configure them to protect your workloads or your virtual machines or any other kind of services inside Microsoft Azure. Now, if you understand this about okay, we would like to protect our virtual machine or any of the resource, then you need to also know that what exactly the job of this network security group. In a very simple, plain word, in other sense, it's a kind of a firewall, or in other sense, we call it access control list. Now, what exactly it does for us? It just helps us to filter the traffic, the network traffic, which comes inside and go outside from Azure Network based on all the resources we have created inside Microsoft Azure. And after that, based on the conditions we have applied, just follow that and allow us to access the resource, or maybe help us to block that resource, because we definitely don't want to come any requests, or we don't want to take any requests from any of the untrusted resource. That's the simple way if you like to understand about NSG. But again, I'm sure that you might have lots of questions, and certainly you can ask in the comment section, or in November, I will arrange a kind of virtual meeting on the Google Meet where you can ask questions, you can post your question, and we can also have a discussion on the same part. So right here, if you need to understand more about network security group, like what exactly it is, how it is helping us in filtering the traffic, that we can cover right now from this picture, because I think it would be more easier way to explain and to show you that how this thing actually work when you implement the solution. So guys, here the same scenario, there's no change in the scenario: front end, back end, and data storage. So the good thing is about the public access, because now we have allowed public access to our front end server. And by default, obviously what we have done is we have allowed, consider that outbound and inbound access. So that's another great. I mean, the people can access the front end server or the web server, as well as the people on the web server, maybe they want to access some resources from the internet, they can also do that. That's absolutely fine. Now the good thing is you have the access, right? I mean, that is a good thing. But the bad thing is, whatever the access you have, maybe the hacker right sitting here, and of course I want to give two, a kind of bad antennas on this mine, is a, hey, I really want to hack something and I'm a very bad guy, something like that. So maybe this guy wants to hack this web server, and why he can do that? Because we have allowed every single protocol from any place by default because we have configured a public IP address, right? So guys, that's the problem. And obviously, if this guy can get access of this web server, it means he can make this server down, and I'm sure none of you wants to do that. Or maybe you definitely don't want to achieve this kind of outcome, because that can directly impact your job role, or you can say your performance and many other things associated with this kind of attack. So guys, that's how the network security groups comes into the picture, because we don't want to allow every single person to access this machine on any of the protocol. That's okay. If this is just a web server, so obviously I want everybody can access, but I don't want to allow anyone on all of my ports to be accessible in this public IP address. And that's the reason you need to set up a network security group. Now what it does for us, it just said source could be any, means I want to allow anyone from the internet, obviously, and destination is my front end server. So it's like, for example, destination is front end server, anyone to access to front end server, and which port you want to allow, because my website could be accessible by two ways, whether it is 80. I think very less people like to access these days, until unless this website is not running inside your private network. Everybody like to configure the port number 443, which is exactly or equivalent of HTTPS. So once you have this HTTPS protocol configured along with your website name, like www.harsharena.com as an example. So what it does for us, it just starts reviewing that, okay, I want to allow only and only port 443 to be accessible on this web server. So we create a rule, this is called a security rule, And of course, we give the condition, we give the access control as an allow. So once we allow that, we are good to go, and anybody can have access of the data, and they are absolutely ready to go without any hassle. So if this guy is trying to access port number 22, which is SSH from the Linux end, or maybe RDP, the remote desktop protocol 3389, this port number, then definitely the rule is not been added here in the network security group, and according to that, first the request goes to the network security group and say, hey, does this meet this requirement, because this guy wants to access 3389. And obviously for all other kind of protocol, we have requested deny. So based on that deny request, said, hey, this 3389 is not been allowed in this environment, so please means drop that request, or you can say simply destroy that request or packets coming from the user. Then again, what network security group do for us, it actually drop that request, and then we are kind of secure right here, because we are only allowing port number 443 to access our website. None of other port has been allowed from the network security group. So that's the job of the network security group. Whatever you read, whatever you learn about network security group, the bottom line is gonna be same. Yes, once you configure network security group, you can find multiple options. Don't worry, I'll give you at least some basic idea about those, and I will tell you how you can do that, how you can even configure those network security group. And in fact, we will also try with one of the example right away that how you can start reviewing and configuring your network security group. So overall, the bottom thing is it can help us to filter the network traffic, whether in the security rules that we have created is been allowing that specific request or deny that request. That's how it is helping us to decide which port and which specific dedicated IP address is been allowed, or address space or subnet been allowed to access my resources in Microsoft Azure. So I hope you get some idea, and if you do, then let's go to Azure Portal and do some practical there. Are you ready? I am. Like I always recommend, please go through all the different websites and the documentation provided from Microsoft, because when you learn and gain knowledge from this document and do the step-by-step instructions right mentioned here, it can give you even more confidence on managing those solutions. So guys, this is the link, and I request you to please go through about all the network security group. Although, just like I said, whatever I have explained, they just elaborate every single thing in detail, and including that, whatever the practical we are going to learn now, it has been also added here with, again, much more in detail, in depth information. That's all. But again, still, sometimes the words like service tags and application security groups, this can give you even more better understanding and more information about the topics that you're learning with me. Although today we are not going to learn and do more on application security group, because it's dedicatedly we are working on the network security group. But again, it's a part of that, and I think it would be really a good idea to go through this one. However, the good thing is we are going to start with the deployment and to show you something that how you can start configuring network security group from scratch, as well as if you already met network security group, what are the things you need to keep in your mind. You have to remember all that steps. So let me just refresh the screen first to verify how many VMs are running, so I can see that web server, the new one is been running, and front-end server is running, and other one is running. However, so start with first thing first, that if you like to create a new virtual machine, And in terms of network security group can be configured right from this place. Like NIC, network security group, whether you want to configure that. So if you select none, then automatically you can see that all the options are gone under network security group. Otherwise, if you click basic, advanced, accordingly, you can choose and mention and give the information right here. But why I'm telling you this, because this is just for your information. It could be two possible things. One network security group is already associated with one of your virtual machine or resources running. Then you just need to start configuring all the settings and whatever has been mentioned. That's pretty simple and straight. But if somebody is telling you, I don't want to associate network security group, or at least a new network security group along with this, a new virtual machine. So guys, you have to come at this place again under networking, choose none, and you're good to go. If you feel that you have not created any network security group ever, then one option is you can also start creating with the help of virtual machine during the creation of that virtual machine or any other resource. But if you still don't want to follow this step, then the other step is right here for you. Let me show you. What you can do is simply go to or type here in search network security groups. Don't go with the classic, that's for the old model. We like to follow the new model, that is network security group. So as soon as you click here, in general, maybe if you are doing for the first time, maybe you don't see any of the network security group here. So what you need to do, it's a very simple thing. Click create. And as soon as you click create, here resource group, obviously you need to select any one of your, I can say the subscription, then choose your resource group. I'm going to choose the same one. EC2 is the location, that's fine. And the name of, wow, I have a couple of names, that's good. And name of that particular network security group. So it's gonna be web server, sorry, E should be small NSG. I think that's pretty much it. And just click review and create. So what it does, it actually creates a new network security group. Click create. Your network security group is almost ready right here. So once your network security group is ready, which is currently the deployment is in progress. Now, similarly, we have managed, the private and public IP address. Similarly, we need to also associate this network security group with the network interface card. I'll show you from where you can connect, but this is something I like to guide you that how this thing actually works. So this is the step. So your deployment has been completed. So let's go back to home and let's go to the virtual machine. So I like to show you, I have created a new virtual machine. The name is HA web server. And when I go here and especially I click on networking, you can see that this network interface does not contain network security group. So there is no network security group associated with this specific virtual machine. Now, how you're going to achieve that? First step first, create a network security group just like we have done. Then go to your network interface, click on that network interface, and then click on network security group. Now, this doesn't look good to me. Why? Because guys, if I have not configured any network security group, it means that, and also don't forget, if I assign, let me just show you, and I have assigned the public IP address. Now, what exactly damage it can do is, if I simply go to this place, this is my remote desktop application. So I'm trying to access this application because currently no network security group has been configured. I double click on this, is asking me, and this is the port number 3389 because I'm trying to do RDP of that machine. And you can see that without network security group, if I click enter and click continue, see what happened. It's trying to configure remote PC, and very soon I will have the access of that machine. Now you can see that I'm able to access, I can delete, I can modify anything. Why? Because there is no security group has been configured on the machine at the moment, or in fact the interface. So what we can do is go to networking, click on the network interface, go to network security group, which is right on the left hand side, and here in fact instead of none, choose the newly created network security group, that is web server NSG. As soon as I create it, I click save. What it does, it actually associate this network security group with your interface and of course your virtual machine. And now it's been done. Let's go back to the server. Now wait for some time or click overview. Let me refresh the machine. Let's wait for some time because it may take some time to reflect under networking. But if you do, you can find now a couple of rules, or we call it default rules, is been added right here inside inbound port rule and outbound port rule. You don't need to remember application security group and load balancing at the moment. These 2 points are enough. Now, first thing you need to know here, in this priority, you can see that I have 65,000, 65,001 and 65,500. So always remember first, whenever you configure any rule, the priority, the lower priority considered as a first security rule to be considered in terms of filtering. Now, for example, here, let's say I mention about deny all inbound. That is a deny rule, right? It means that whatever I have allowed VNet, virtual network inbound. So that's regarding the pure Azure basis security rule. And similarly, I have another Azure basis security rule based on load balancer and virtual network. So both of these from any port, from any protocol, and of course source is virtual network, Azure load balancer is been allowed. Except these two allowed requests, any other kind of request will be denied for this particular server. Remember that. And that's exactly, you can see that it's been denied. But remember what it does, whenever some traffic coming to this network security group, the first thing first, it will review this rule. Then it goes to this rule and finally goes to the last one. So the lower the priority or the numbers are here, that considered to the top priority in terms of selecting your security rule. I think you get the whole point here. Now, as long as now my inbound security rules is been in place and my network security group is been configured, now let's try to access the same machine again. So I go back to the same remote desktop, double click on the machine and see the difference. Now I'm trying to access my machine or my server, and you can see that it's currently saying I'm initiating remote connection. And after a few more seconds, or consider in a minute, it will show you unable to connect. We could not connect to the remote PC. Why? Because that request is currently in a deny part and I have not been configured any of the protocol with 3389 port number that can be allowed. Now, if you really want to test whether how your network security group really works, what you can do is you can click add inbound port rule. Now, this is the section which I was talking about. So source, guys, because we are trying to access our machine from the internet. So I will definitely choose any. But again, if you are working in your organization and you feel that you have a dedicated IP address, you can choose an IP addresses and you can give the range or give the port range. All these possibilities are right here, service tags and all that. But I think right now, let's move with the default option. Source port range, which port I am using, it doesn't matter. What matters here, what ports I like to access on this machine right now. So source port range would be star, any port is fine. And of course, what else we have? Destination. Yeah, destination would be any, or if you want to dedicatedly assign a virtual network or application security group or IP address, you can choose from here. At the moment, I will follow any, that's okay. Now, service, you can choose which protocol you like to allow or deny. So obviously, I know the protocol name is RDP, and when I choose RDP, automatically it will choose 3389 port number or TCP. Otherwise, what you can do in another way, you can select custom if you have any other port number. Then you can give any number you like, any name. I think you get my point here. So right now I will follow the right option is called RDP, and of course allow or deny. There are two actions, two conditions, which one you like to choose, and the priority should be lower than 65,000 if you like to consider this request. So I'll choose 100, that's okay, and port is 3389, allow. I give this one and just click add. So as soon as I click add this rule, check out after a few seconds, the rule will be added here, and it gives you some kind of warning sign that, hey, you actually opened this port on a public address. I think you should give, wow, something like this one. So Microsoft has some intelligence system here also been configured that whenever you like to open any port which is not been good for your organization, Microsoft will give you some kind of indication that, hey, please don't do that. Otherwise, there must be they kind of some implications will be there in the future, and maybe hackers can attack on this machine and can destroy your data if you really care about it. But what we are doing here is just for the practice, so that you will see that NSG or network security group in action. So now let's go to the same application. So previously we were not able to connect. Let's close that. Try to do it again. But this time you can see that I have a username request, and then I will just type the password and simply continue, and we are good to go here. So this is the way, guys, how you can start managing your request in inbound and outbound rule, because inbound means the request is coming to the virtual network or that particular machine. Outbound, the request going outside from that machine to somewhere else. So that's how you can start protecting your resources. And I'm sure you get enough experience that how you can set up your network security group. Again, the good thing is you can, whenever you start practicing those things in your real scenario, this would be really helpful and you will enjoy all these practices. So guys, that to be all for now. And before to go, I like to just tell you that I have to mention that if you have any of the backend server inside your own premises in terms of private and public access, just for your reference, so what you can do is you can configure a VPN gateway. We call it VPN Gateway. This VPN gateway can allow securely connect to your Azure network, and after that you are able to start managing your resources without any problem. In fact, the complete solution works for you in a very secure way. But again, I don't want to talk about right here, because here we just talk about whatever the resources we have inside Microsoft Azure. I have not discussed about if you have any resources, let's say in on-premises, then what you should do in that situation. Then guys, I have to configure VPN gateway in between these two. Of course, VPN gateway should be configured on on the Microsoft Azure end, and in your on-premises, a kind of edge device, maybe a firewall, maybe a layer 3 security device you may have. Then the couple of settings need to be configured that will help to connect securely over here through the ISP, and VPN gateway will start transferring your request from on-premises to the cloud in case you have an implementation of your web server. But I think that is much more information you need to remember right now. You don't need to know lots of things at the moment. We will do this step by step. So guys, that to be all for today. And I'm sure you like the session and this information is quite informative and helpful to you. And stay connected. And yeah, guys, I like to tell you, we crossed 3,000 subscribers. I really appreciate with folded my hands. Thank you so much for your love and support. I will keep continue working on AZ-900, and I just want to tell you everyone, we have completed 70% of all the topics. You are absolutely ready to go for any examination. The couple of topics are remaining. I will try to cover as soon as possible. So for AZ-104, I will also make videos very soon. So guys, yeah, that to be all, and thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Till then, take care, goodbye, and yeah, happy Diwali and peace.